welcome to another construction video. This one is for Tonic's showcase number 22, which is called the Pot of Happiness, and it's this really cool, almost like a plant pot, that you have like a pop-up mechanism where the sentiment pops up at the front of the box, and then you have other decorations behind it to make it into a flower pot. Or you can make it into an ice cream cone. You actually have the elements in there to turn it into an ice cream cone. Or you can think outside the box and turn it into whatever you want to, really. Anything from your stash could be popping up instead of the sentiment, or you can have anything sort of behind the sentiment as well. So I thought I'd do a construction video because even though you do get the instructions in the packaging, I got a little bit confused by them. I'm not very good at following Tonic's instructions. I'm not sure if it's how they're written or if it's just me, but I thought I would do a video version of it as well, just in case any of you get stuck with them and you want to easily be able to create it. So I'm gonna run through in this video exactly which dies cut what bits and what bits you need to put the whole sort of flower pot portion together, and then I will show you me decorating it as well. I'm turning this one into an ice cream cone with mint choc chip ice cream coming out the top of it, and then in my up close video, which should have gone up before this one, you will have also seen a full run through of every single die that's in the set, and this sample plus 2 more of the flower pots, and also 3 card samples as well, using waste pieces or making them match the actual pop-up sort of project as well. So let's run through which pieces you need to create your actual flower pot. So the first piece that you will need is this piece. So this is the largest flower pot die that is in there, and you will need 1 solid one of these, but you will also need 2 solid ones but with this piece cut into them. There isn't actually a proper need for 2 of them. I think it's mostly just for stability. You're actually going to stick both of these together and the pop-up mechanism will work inside of this. So I think that's the reason why you cut 2 of them, because you do end up just sticking them both together. And then you have this piece here, which isn't actually mentioned in the instructions. They tell you something else, which is what was confusing me. So this is the actual piece that you use inside of this to turn this into the slot where the little lever will go up and down to make the pop-up work. So firstly you need 1 of the largest pot solid, then 2 of the largest pot with this slot piece inside. And do save those slot pieces too, because if you've watched my up close video, I show you a card that I've made with those extra slot pieces. So that's the first few pieces that you will need. Then you will also need this piece here, and you don't actually need this like this. I mean, I presume the reason why they didn't make this die have the slit inside it, because you only need it with the slit, but I'm presuming they made it so it didn't have the slit inside so that you could use this to create a flower pot shaped pocket on the front of a card or in a memory book or something as well. So if you have those kind of memory book sort of dies and you want this sort of shaped pocket, this would work as a pocket on there as well, and it could even work as a pocket inside a card to put a gift card in too. So you could actually use this by itself, but the actual piece we need for creating the pop-up mechanism is this piece with this slot cut inside. The slot is actually the same size, I think it's an identical size to this one. Yeah, it is. And in the instructions I'm pretty sure they're telling you to use this die to create that slot, but then they have eventually ended up giving you this die, which makes it just much easier for cutting that one out. But the next piece that we need is this piece with this one cut in the center of it, and that gives you this portion. And you can see where I've added the tape on this as well. Those ones don't need any tape, but this one has tape on those 3 edges. Then I was following the instructions for this piece because the instructions tell you to cut your decorative detail into this one, but I wanted to just add my decorative detail as a panel on top of the box, so I've left this one solid. But if you have cut your decorative detail into that one, you would definitely need this solid piece. I have actually been sticking the mechanism portion to this solid piece because it kind of makes it easier, so you can do it either way. I have still been using this piece even though I don't technically need it because I didn't cut my decorative detail into that piece. But the next pieces you will need is this piece solid, and I have also cut myself a second one with my decorative detail in that I'm going to stick on top of that rather than having cut that into there as well. If you look at the instructions, that will make sense from what they're telling you and how I've decided to do it. So that is the next piece that you will need. Then for the sides of your box, it is these two pieces, well, the same piece cut twice, and that's where I've put the tape on there. You don't actually have to put the sides on the box, but I just preferred it with the sides on, so it is completely up to you whether you want to put the sides on your box or not. But it's this die that creates the side pieces, and you will need 2 of them, and that's where I've put the adhesive on there. Then you will also need the bottom of your box, which is this piece, and you just need to cut one of them, and that's where I've put the adhesive onto this one. And I've been using 3mm Redline tape because it fits nicely on all of the tabs. So that's the bottom of the box. Then this piece kind of creates that thicker sort of rim that goes around the top of the plant pot. So you will need 2 of these, and it's just using this long die. But you could also use this for other different projects as well, and use it as like a little belly band to hold papers in place in a an art journal, or in a scrapbook page, or in a memory book as well. So I think this is a nice versatile die too, but this is actually used to create the top rim around the sort of plant pot design, and that is this die here. Then for the pop-up mechanism, so the actual mechanism to make it work, these are all of the pieces that you are going to need. So this is the main sort of middle mechanism part, and you just need one of these, and it's got all of these different score lines on, and I'll show you as we put it together what all of those different score lines are for. Some of the pieces need to be glued together, some go through slits, and then other ones go through slits and then glued together on the other side as well. So that is the sort of main middle section of this sort of pop-up mechanism. Then this mechanism will attach to one of these on each side of it. So these are the sort of next main piece, and you need 2 of them. One of them will slide through this portion and the other one will get stuck to it on the other side. So that is that piece there, which just is a rectangle with 2 slits in. Then this piece is the handle. So on the back of your flower pot, through this slit here, you will have this piece, which is a handle, which will attach to one of these pieces and will allow you to slide it up and down to create that, or to make that sentiment pop up in the front of the flower pot. So you just need one of those pieces. And then finally, you need this piece, which is the piece that you put your sentiment on. In the die set, there are 2 oval sentiments that will fit perfectly into this. There's also a circle sentiment, which you could stick onto the oval, or you could snip off the excess and just have the circle poking out the top. Or I'm actually going to show you on this one how you can trim into some of the sentiments and add them as a wonky shape on top of here as well, and build more of a design around this too. So this is the place where the sentiment is going to be, to sort of pop up, and this part will get stuck to one of these portions, and then that's the sort of mechanism that slides up and down. And I have actually cut 2 of them. I think it only tells you 1 in the instructions, but I've cut 2 of them because I just felt like if this is going to be going up and down, you want it to be nice and sturdy so that it's not going to bend and then get caught inside the mechanism. So I'm going to stick 2 of these back to back for my one. So those are all of the pieces that you need to create this. I'll run through again quickly without showing the dies, just in case I confuse by going back and forth. So the pieces that you will need to create this pot of happiness is 1 solid of the large flower pot, 2 of the large flower pot with the slit cut in, then 1 of this piece with all of the score lines around the edges with the slot cut in, and that's where you put your adhesive on it. Then you will need 1 of the smallest flower pot sort of shape cut from solid, 1 of the smallest flower pot shape cut with your decorative panel, and there are 2 to choose from. You will need 1 of this piece, which is the bottom of the box, and that is where I've put the red liner tape on this. You will need 2 of these pieces, which are the sides of the flower pot, and that's where I've put the adhesive on. You will need 2 of these pieces, which create the top rim of the flower pot, and I'm going to show you how to stick them on later. On the other ones I have used just red liner tape to attach them, but this one I'm going to try with 3D foam and see if that works as well. And then for the pop-up mechanism, for my version of it, you're going to need 2 of these ones, which are like the actual pop-up part where the sentiment would stick on, and obviously you would need the sentiment to go on there as well. And then for the actual pop-up mechanism, you need 1 of this piece, which has a load of score lines going all the way through it. You will need 2 of these pieces, which have the slots cut in them ready, and then you will need 1 of this piece, which is the handle, to be able to pull the mechanism up and down within the flower pot. So I'll be back in a second to show you the full construction of the flower pot. I think the first thing I'm going to do is my sentiment portion, because I want to decorate this with some different bits and pieces, so I think maybe getting this ready would be good. So what I have done for my sentiment here is this hello you can actually cut within the circle to create a circular sentiment, but I wanted to just have a play with cutting it at some jaunty angles. So I've cut it from white, used my long bladed pair of scissors to cut around it at jaunty angles. I've matted it onto some green glitter card, then I've trimmed around that and then matted it onto some brown card as well, because the theme of this ice cream cone is mint choc chip ice cream, so the green and the brown go really nicely. And I want to place that onto here, but I want to make it look a little bit more interesting. So what I've done is I've cut an extra one of the sort of ice cream cone pattern, and I just want to randomly snip into this to create a little piece that we can add to that oval pop-up piece, just to give it a little bit more interest behind there. And I got this idea from the matching card that I've created to go with this one, which you will have seen in my up close video as well, but literally just snipping around. And we can snip extra off of this as well if we don't like the way that it's looking. But I just wanted to add some extra kind of detail coming out from behind it. So I think that's how I'm going to go with it. And then I've also kept the pieces that have fallen away from this as well, because I think they look really nice just scattered around as, like, you know, flakes of bits of cone, or maybe even like chocolate shards or something, and I think that just gives a little bit of a different look to this. So I think I'm going to go with something like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my glue and stick the 2 of these back to back to make this stronger, and you just want to add glue all over them to make it nice and sturdy. You can use tape for this as well, but the glue just helps you be able to wiggle them around if you don't quite put them perfectly on top of each other as you're working. And then I'm just going to take this little sort of waffly piece that we have snipped out. Oh, that wasn't quite lined up. There we go, that's better. So we're just going to take this little waffly piece and stick it sort of just with a few dots of glue on the back of this and put it about here. Then we can take the sentiment and stick that on over the top. You could use some very low profile 3D foam to add that on, because there is a little bit of space for the pop-up sentiment to go down inside the mechanism, but to be on the safe side, sticking it on flat I think is better, especially because we've added some extra little layers onto here. And we might find later on that we might have to snip off some of these pieces, because it might not allow the sentiment to go down into the little pocket that it sort of lives in. So we might have to adjust that later, but I think that kind of design looks quite nice. Maybe add an extra little one there, possibly another extra one here too, just to sort of add some extra interest. So that is going to be my pop-up sentiment, and I wanted to get that done ready so that the rest of it is just more like the actual construction. So that's my little sentiment. But then we need the first part of the mechanism that this is going to sit onto. So for the first part, we just need these 2 pieces, and then we'll have to start assembling the flower pot before we can finish the mechanism. But for this one, you have got all of these different score lines on here. So the first 2 we're folding away from us, and this is what is going to slide through those slits. That's the perfect width apart, as the same as those slits. And then we might as well pre-fold all of these pieces ready. So the next 2 we're going to fold towards us. So both of those ones that are really close together, we're folding towards us, because eventually this piece is going to stick to the ones on the other side. So we need to fold them in the opposite direction. And then when that comes together, those are going to stick together once we have threaded it through this. And then the other ones, we're going to fold away from us again. The final ones are going to fold away from us. And that's what we're going to use to attach the other one of these to the other side. So now we've got all our fold lines going in the right directions. We can slide this through the slot. It is quite a tight fit, but it does go through relatively easily. And we want to slide this up to that middle sort of section there, and then we want to put the other one through the other side. You could add a little bit of glue behind that central square there if you wanted to hold it in place, but it does just stay in place really nicely with the sort of score lines. They sort of hold it in place nicely. So we now have this sort of element here, and then where this comes through here, we want to stick that together. So we're just going to take a little bit of glue and put it on that little tiny skinny rectangle there. You can use tape for that as well. 3mm tape would be the perfect kind of width for that. And then you're just going to stick them together, and then we're going to leave that to dry whilst we work on the next portion. So we've got that which is coming together like this, and eventually those will stick together on the other side of one of these. So that's how eventually it is going to look, but we have to actually put this part of the mechanism into the flower pot before we can attach the other side together. So we'll leave that as it is for now. And then for the next part, we're going to need this solid piece, and we're also going to need these two pieces with the slit in, and then we're also going to need the bottom of the flower pot as well. So I think the instructions tell you to do this in a different order, but this is the way that I decided to do it. So firstly, we're going to stick these two together, because as I said before, I think the only reason is just to make this back piece a little bit more sturdy, because you're not sticking any decorative detail onto it. So it just makes it a little bit sturdier if we're sticking two of them together. And if your slots don't line up perfectly, like mine were a little bit off, I think I must not have had that second die quite in the centre of it. But you can just pick whichever side you want to be your outside, and then snip that excess card that's hanging over. That's what I did on the previous one. I didn't notice with the first one that I made. Maybe my dies just moved the more that I was cutting them. But that is going to be the outside of the back of the flower pot, and that's where the mechanism is going to go up and down. So we know that wants to be our outside, so if we put it that way round, we will know that when we stick this on, which is the base of the box, we're going to get that the right way round. So the base has got two score lines, one on each side, so you're just going to fold those, and then we can just remove the red liner tape on this one, and we're going to stick this onto here. And then we can pick out the front panel of the flower pot and stick that onto the other side of the base. I think the instructions said to do it in a different order, but I found that I hadn't left enough room along this bottom edge for that glue tab to stick on the first one that I created. So I decided to do it like this the second time, and that's the way that I'm going to show you how to do it. So that is like the first part of the flower pot coming together. Then we want to create the channel for our mechanism to sit in. So these two pieces here create the actual channel. It's mostly this piece, but if you had cut your decorative detail into here, you would then put this piece behind to fill in the colour of that, so that the colour would show through the pattern on the front of it, and that's what the instructions tell you. However, I just decided to do it this way because I wanted to add my detailed panel on afterwards. So this piece has got multiple score lines going around the edges, and this creates a kind of pocket portion for the mechanism to sit inside. So we've got two sets of score lines all the way around that we need to fold. They are quite narrow, so if you do find it difficult to get them to fold, you can fold it against a ruler. You can take, you know how a ruler sort of chamfers down at the edge of it? You can take the chamfered edge and butt it up against the score line, and then fold against that to get a long sort of fold like this to actually crease in the right place. Or if you don't have a ruler, or you haven't got one that's got that beveled kind of edge to it, you can actually just use like the pointy part down here of your glide folder. So if you fold the first one, which is usually the easiest, you can then put that sort of sharp edge against the inside of the score line, and then just move along and help the next one fold as well. If you ever struggle with that, you can do that. So that is the actual like pocket portion that our mechanism is going to live inside. And the way I was sticking this down is I was taking the tape off of the bottom one and folding the two edge pieces in, so now it's staying in that shape. But before we stick this to this, we need to put this mechanism inside it. But before we put the mechanism inside, we also need to stick our sentiment to it. So you're going to want to stick your sentiment like this to that side of it, and you can actually vary the height of it if you wanted to. For all of mine, I've just been lining this up with the bottom of that piece that's there, and that's been working perfectly. So that's how I'm going to stick this one on now, and I think I'm just going to use a piece of tissue tape to stick that on. So I'll just put it on to here, and then we can remove the backing, fold that over, and then just stick that onto there like that. So we've now got our sentiment attached to the mechanism, but now we need to put the mechanism into this portion. So we're going to put that face down, and then we're going to slide it through this slit here, and then we want that to stick to that first panel. Now if you had cut the detail onto here, you would want to make sure the professional edge of this was down, facing downwards, and then you would stick this on top, because the professional edge would then show through this when we stick it together. But because I'm using a solid piece there, it doesn't actually matter. And you could, if you're using a solid piece there, stick this straight on the inside here. But to reinforce the thickness of this, I don't mind using this extra panel here as well. So we've got our sentiment within that sort of pocket that it'll hide inside of, and we can take off the red liner tape on these two end pieces here, and then we can just line this up onto here and stick it down to create that little pocket element. You can push to make sure the three sides are down. You can add your glide folder inside, or even use your pokey tool if you want something narrower. And now we actually have our pop-up mechanism. So we've now actually got the pop-up and how it works. See, it might get a little bit caught with that portion there, but it does fit inside, which is good. However, this will be stuck all the way over onto this in a second, so hopefully that won't catch on there. So that is the actual pop-up mechanism, and now we need to stick it onto here. So I was just using Tonic's tissue tape to stick that down. So I'm going to go right across that top edge so it will stay really nicely stuck, and then the bottom edge, and then both sides as well. You can definitely use wet glue for this too, but because we want to be playing with it relatively soon, I think it's easier to use tape so that I can show you how the mechanism works without having to wait for the glue to dry. So we can just remove all of the backing off of the tape. And then make sure nothing's overlapping over the edge of it, and then we can take this and we want to stick this inside here. Now this is why I say do it this way round, because when I first put this in, I put it too close to the bottom and then this glue tab wouldn't fit. So if you've already put the glue tab for the bottom on, it doesn't matter how high or low you place this, and it doesn't really matter how high or low you place this anyway, because you can actually adjust the height of the rim of the flower pot to completely hide what's inside it if you want it to be completely hidden as well. So that is adding our mechanism onto there, and you can see how that goes in and out really nicely, and you can see from the front it doesn't look as if it's going to be hidden, so you're kind of like, what's the point? But when you put this on later, it will be more hidden. Because I've added all of this extra stuff here, it's less hidden than my other two that I've done, but we could definitely raise that up a little bit or snip some of these bits off so they're not poking out. But I don't mind actually if that's poking out, because you can't see the sentiment, you can just see what looks like extra bits of wafer, so I don't mind that that's going to be sticking out a little bit. So the next bit of the flower pot is to finish off the rest of the mechanism. So you can see how the slots line up from front to back. So now we want this part of the mechanism to come through here, and we need to attach this onto the other panel, and you want to make sure the nice side of this is outwards because you're going to be able to see that from the back of the flower pot. So you just want to start threading these through. You just want to thread this whole little panel through up to that score line, one on each of the slits, and then we're going to glue them as we go as well. So as I said before, it's a tight fit, but that's good because it means it's not going to slip around or anything. And I have just been putting one through, gluing it down, making sure it's up to that score line, and then going for the other one and putting that through and gluing that one down as well. Okay, this one's tighter fit than the other one. Okay, there we go. And you just bring it up to that little score line that's there, and then we can add some glue onto that and then fold that one over. Now that is the whole mechanism finished, but if the sides are going to be on it, it's going to be hard. I mean, you can actually still grab it like this, but it'll be easier if there was a handle on there. So you actually have the little handle die as well. So firstly with this, you want to score it or fold it in half with that central fold line. Then the next two you want to fold towards you. So we've now got that kind of folding going on, and then the other two you want to fold away from you. So the two little skinny ones right on the end you want to fold away from you. So you're now going to end up with a piece that looks like this. And then this middle portion is the handle, so you want to stick that together. And then this piece is now going to stick over this. So if you see, that's the perfect width, and then those two glue tabs will fold around the back of it. So to do that, all I was doing was just adding glue all over this, and then we can just add that to our little mechanism portion here. So you want to just place that right over the centre, and then you can just press down either side to fix those glue tabs, or if you can't press down that easily, if you can't get your fingers in there to press down, you can use tiny little pegs to help get that glue tab to stay nicely stuck in there as well. So that's not quite holding it round. That bit keeps coming unstuck. Okay. Why is that not working? Okay, there we go. So we can just leave that to dry as that little mechanism there. And then I want to add my decorative portion to the front, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to add my little sort of waffle cone kind of piece onto there. And then after this, we're going to add the sides of the flower pot on, which in the instructions said it is optional, so it will still work if you don't want to put the sides on. I guess it just depends whether you want the person to be able to see how it works or not. I quite like it hidden because then it sort of makes it a little bit more magical. So we can just place that on. You can actually obviously put another colour behind that if you want to as well. You could just cut another one of the small shape and put another one behind if you want it to be a little bit more noticeable. But I don't mind the tone on tone, especially for an ice cream cone. It literally is tone on tone because it's just a embossed kind of pattern on there. So also while that is still drying, we can add our side pieces on. So you can see actually the mechanism on the side. You can see how that's going together, which is a really clever mechanism actually. And the way you've got that little hidden pocket there that the sentiment goes inside, and then you've got this little portion in the centre. So for the side pieces, we've got these two pieces. That's where I've put the tape on, basically just on all of the glue tabs. And then we just want to fold all of them away from us. And same with this one. And then I have been sticking the bottom tab on first. So I just take the tape off of that, line that up and press from the inside. And then same for the other side. And then we just want to stick the glue tabs in the side of the box. So I've been taking both sides of the same side off, both backing liner tapes for the tape, and then lining that up nicely and pressing from the inside again to get that to stay stuck all the way down, and then poke the other one inside and then line that one up as well. And this is quite a tight fit with that little pocket that's inside there, so it's quite nice to press your glide folder or a ruler or something down that side piece to make sure that glue tab sticks really nicely. And then we'll do exactly the same on the other side. And line that one up as well, and then do the same thing and push that glue tab down on the inside. So that is the main portion. That should have dried enough now to take those little pegs off. And that's our little handle on the back of the box, and that is the main sort of piece. That is going to keep catching, I think, so I'm going to snip that off a little bit shorter just there, but I think the rest of it should be fine. Don't think anything else is catching too much. So that is the main portion of our little ice cream cone or flower pot, depending how you're decorating it. And then the final part is the sort of lip that goes around the top that can help you hide that sentiment a little bit more as well. And as I said earlier, the other ones that I have put on, I have done just with a piece of red liner tape around the top, but this one I want to try putting it on with a really low profile foam tape, just to give it a little bit of shadow, because you know the top of a cone is usually a wider diameter than the bottom of it. I know this isn't circular, but I just want to give it that kind of a look. So I'm just going to cut some skinny strips of foam tape and put them all the way around the top of the cone. This is how I was attaching the other ones, but just using the 3mm red liner tape and putting it just around this top edge of the flower pot or the ice cream cone. And then one for each of the side pieces as well. And the other side. Okay. Then you want to put the back one on first, because as I say in a lot of, like, when I'm constructing something, from the front you want to see the folds, because it looks neater than seeing the raw edges. So we want to put the back one on first so that the folds will be on the front. So I think this should be alright to fit around it. Yeah, I think that should work. So we're going to go with the back one on first, so we can take the backing off of that piece of foam tape and then just place that onto there. And then we can bring the sides around. And the other side. Now the sides aren't quite as wide as the box. Even when you haven't put foam tape on, they're still not quite as wide. So it works nicely to have the second one coming around the front to hide that as well, because they wouldn't come right to the ends anyway, the little tabs. So we want to fold that one. And then we actually want to put tape on the back of these now, because it just makes it a little bit easier. You could use glue as well, but I've just been using a little bit of tissue tape and putting that on there. Then we want to take the front bit of foam tape off, and when we're sticking this one on, we want to look at where this is coming, because we want them to line up. So we're eyeballing the middle so that the score lines will both go backwards, but we're also looking at where the piece that we have already stuck on is going to sort of meet as well. We want to make sure that's going to line up when we stick it around, and that is going to line up, so we can press that in place nicely. And then we can just take that tape off the back of these pieces, and then we can secure that around the side. And then that will line up nicely to complete the side of the sort of cone. And then we can put this one round. And there we are. We've got our finished sort of ice cream cone there. And if you had only just used the oval, you can see the oval is completely hidden. But because I've added these extra pieces onto this one, it is slightly visible above the top. But if you don't want that, you can position this slightly lower down on the mechanism portion. So you know we actually stuck it to the bottom of the sort of square portion that was in there. You could stick it right to the bottom of this on the one on the other side, and then it would be slightly further down as well. But if you have just used the oval, it will be completely hidden. So that is the sort of surprise pop-up element, but obviously it doesn't look like an ice cream cone yet because there's no ice cream in it. So you've actually got all of the dies to be able to do that. So I've got 3 balls of mint choc chip ice cream. One's from Glitter Card, 2 are from Textured Craft Perfect. Then I've also got the sentiment, an extra sentiment to go on the front, because you actually have elements to be able to decorate this sort of front portion of it as well. So I'm going to stick that on, and I've just done the Life is Sweet one to go with sort of sweet ice cream. And then if you bought the most recent Stamp Club, which was number 18, which was called Delicious Desserts, which should be available for those of you in the US now, because I know it was a slightly later launch for you in the US, but it should be available now, so I'll make sure to link it below. But it was a whole ice cream sundae kind of themed stamp and die set, so some of the extra little dies from that will work perfectly to go with your ice cream on this. So I've created a wafer, sticking 3 of the wafer pieces together, and I've also just used the flake die, stuck 2 on top of each other so I can, you know, stick it further out of the ice cream. And then I've also just used a really small ball tool to just create that sort of flaky texture in there as well. And then it doesn't actually say in the instructions where you're supposed to add the decoration, but I presume you're supposed to just add it on the back portion here so that it doesn't interfere with your pop-up mechanism. So that's how I've just been adding mine, just to this back lip here, just sticking everything onto there, and it seems to be working out nicely. So I am going to stick one of the textured ones and the glitter one down here, and then I'm going to put another of the textured ones above, and then I'm going to put the wafers coming out the side, and then I'm also going to have the flaky as well, I think, coming out over there too. So we're going to have that kind of a layout for this one. So let's stick these on, and you can use a bit of 3D foam as well if you want to. You don't have to stick everything flat, so I'm going to do that with a little bit of 3D foam. So I'm going to put this ice cream on the side there, maybe a bit further up. And then we're going to take the glittery ice cream and stick that one on as well. And then the last ice cream too, I might tilt that to the side so that the sauce is kind of dripping in a different direction as well. And we can trim off any excess foam tape and put that about there, I think. Then I want to add that wafer behind, so we could use a little bit of foam tape as well to give it a bit of perspective. So I'll put a piece here and here, I think. And then go back to the front to get the placement where we want it, and then have that poking out. So this wafer isn't in this die set, it's from Stamp Club number 18, and so is the flake as well. So if you want to have that too, then that's where you can find those dies. And then, I don't know, does it need the flaky? Not sure actually, it looks kind of weird. Maybe it doesn't need it. If I pop the sentiment up, what do I think? Oh yeah, and I think when the sentiment's there, it looks good having the flaky. Okay, so we will put the flaky on there. And I think we can just use a little bit of tape to add that on. So we can go like that, and I don't want the double part to be seen, but I doubled it so that I could, you know, there's more, otherwise if it was the short one I would have had to like stick it further down here to be able to put any glue on it to stick it. So that's why I did the sort of double. So I think that looks really cool actually. And then Hello You pops up. I think just having that extra wafer from the Stamp Club and the little flaky really finishes it off. And then I was thinking we might want to add some of these extra fall away pieces as like extra little bits of cone or sprinkly bits, or I don't know, something. I think that looks quite cool actually. The matching card that I've done, I did sort of similar things to this, so I was thinking it would look quite nice to repeat that onto the actual cone. It just gives a little bit extra interest and makes it a little bit more unique, I guess, because other people might not have done that. It might have the same die set, but they might not have used these sort of little fall away pieces. So I think that looks quite nice to add those on, so I'm going to add them. And then this one. There we go. I really like how that's turned out. Maybe another one down here actually, so it looks a little bit more everywhere. Maybe one more triangular one as well. Like that. There we go. So I hope you enjoyed this construction video for showcase number 22, looking at the Pot of Happiness die set, and you can turn it into the ice cream cone, or you can turn it into a flower pot like this one, and the little enjoy your day is the sentiment that pops up on that one. Or I also wanted to make it a galaxy theme as well. So this one I've also brought in one of the older stamp clubs and the moon from a stamp club as well, and then it's got have a cool birthday and it's like galaxy sort of themed. So I didn't want to stick to just it being a plant pot or an ice cream cone. You can also just make it any kind of pot really. So I hope you enjoyed the construction, and I hope you already watched the up close video so that you could have seen other samples that I've created and seen all of the rest of the dies in detail, so you can mull over some ideas that you might want to do with this die set. And if you're interested in getting hold of this die set, I would presume you've already got it if you're watching the construction, but if you did want to get hold of it and you haven't already, then I will leave affiliate links in the description below the video and also on my blog post as well, and I'll link to the stamp clubs that I've used that are still available. I'm pretty sure the ice cream one is because it was only the last month's one, and I think the Little Monsters one is as well. I think this one has sold out, the one that I've nicked the moon from. But anything that I've used that I can link to, I will link to it below the video and on my blog post as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!